afternoon, class. So let's start with introduction to economics. Introduction to economics. Now, the first thing we need to recognize is that every discipline normally has its own introduction. So also in economics, we have our own what? We have our own introduction. So in economics, it can be traceable to a man called Aristotle. To a man called who? Aristotle. Now, the first person to define economics is called Aristotle. Do you understand me? And he said economics can be coined from two Latin words. From two what? Latin words. Now, the first one is oikos, and the second one is what? Nomos. Like I said, the first person that defined economics is known as Aristotle, in which he coined it from two Latin words, which is what? Oikos and nomos. Now, this oikos simply means household. Why this nomos simply means what? Management. However, combining the two definitions together or combining the two terms together, it simply means the management of household. It simply means what? The management of household. Now, based on the fact that Aristotle defined economics as the management of household, gave us an in-depth knowledge about what economics is all about. Now, later in the 19th century, we have a man called Alfred Marshall. Alfred Marshall was the one that said economics can also be regarded as political economy. Political economy. After he said economics can be regarded as political economy, he changed it later into what? Into economic science. Into what? Economic science. Don't forget, like I said, the first person that defined economics is Aristotle, in which he coined it from two Latin words, oikos and nomos. Are you getting that now? So, and after he combined the two terms together, he said it can be defined as the what? Management of household. Now, later in the 19th century, we have Alfred Marshall, which he will emphasize based on what? Political economy. Now, after calling it political economy, he changed the name to what? Economic science. Do you understand now? So after all this interregnum, we have the likes of Alfred Marshall, we have the likes of Lionel Sirobis, the likes of Adam Smith, and so on and so forth. Now, this also led to the school of thought that we have under economics. Actually, in economics, we have two fundamental schools of thought. What do I call it? Two fundamental schools of thought. Two fundamental school of thought. Now, the first one is the wealth definition school of thought. The wealth definition school of thought, and the second one is welfare definition school of thought. Welfare definition school of thought. The first one is what? The wealth definition school of thought, while the second one is what? Welfare definition school of thought. Now, this school of thought, the reason why they are different is just that their definition is emphasizing on different things. Their definition is what? Emphasizing on different things. Now, the first school of thought, which is regarded as the wealth definition, was headed by a man called Adam Smith. Was headed by who? A man called Adam Smith. Why welfare definition was headed by a man called Alfred Marshall. Was headed by a man called what? Alfred Marshall. Now, don't let us forget that I told us that this economics was regarded as a political economy by a man called Alfred Marshall as well. So, defining it now, let's now move back to the what? To the wealth definition. Now, the wealth definition was defined or was headed by Adam Smith, in which he said economics can be defined as the inquiry to nature, as the what? Inquiry to nature and causes of wealth of nations. Causes of what? Wealth of nations. You can see that's what he emphasized. Now, looking at this definition, his definition was only emphasizing on wealth alone. if we need to explain more better or we need to elaborate, it only emphasizes more on what? More on wealth. Do you understand? That's the reason why his definition was not accepted. Do you understand? Although we have a lot of criticisms about the definition, and also we have a lot of scholars that deliberate on the definition, but later in the day, the definition was not accepted just because of the fact that it only based on what? Wealth. And don't forget that we said before a definition can be what? Accepted, it must be based on management of household. Because that's what economics is all about household. Now, if you now look at the welfare definition of economics now, the welfare definition of economics was defined by Alfred Marshall. Was defined by who?
Alfred Marshall.
Alfred Marshall, in which he said economics can be defined as the what? As the ordinary business of life, or it can be expressed as in terms of ordinary business of life. Or in full definition, it can be defined as the study of mankind in ordinary business of life. Do you understand what I'm saying now? Now, looking at the definition now, you can see that it's only based our aspect on welfare. Am I communicating? Now, the first definition, wealth definition, based our aspect on wealth. Now, the second one, based our aspect on what? On welfare. Now, the reason why this definition was not accepted is because it is one-sided. It is what? One-sided. He only emphasized on the welfare part of what? Of people, but he didn't emphasize on the wealth part of people. Now, before we can define economics, it must combine the two things together. That is, the wealth and the welfare. Am I communicating? The wealth and the what? And the welfare. That's the reason why up to today we still have a lot of what? A lot of problems when defining economics. Now, let's now move furtherly. Now, after we have wealth definition and we have the welfare definition, we now have a man called Lionel C. Robbins. Lionel C. Robbins was the one that defined the most what? Accepted definition that we regarded as our definition today. Now, he defined economics as the what? As a science. As a science which studies human behavior. Which studies what? Human behavior as a what? Who studies human behavior? As a relationship between ends and scarce means with alternative uses. Now, if you look at this definition, there's something that we need to underline. We need to underline a lot of things. Now, the first thing is that as a science, we develop another problem from that. Now, studies human behavior as a relationship between what? Ends and what? Scarce means and also alternative what? Uses. Do you understand? Now, this definition was accepted just because of the fact that he emphasized on the what? Management of household. Am I communicating? He emphasized on the wealth part and the welfare part. He combined everything together. That's the reason why Lionel C. Robbins was accepted by 80% of the what? Of the scholars. Am I communicating now? But later in the day, we have the scholars of 20th century, like the likes of Elmer Gigan. Like the likes of who? Elmer Gigan, who regarded the definition of Lionel C. Robbins as a form of what? As a form of, or he regarded the definition of what? Lionel C. Robbins has not been accepted just because of the fact that he developed some criticism for the definition. Now, and also, apart from the fact that we have Elmer Gigan, the definition being brought out by Elmer Gigan was also criticized upon by a scholar in Nigeria known as Ademola Adebayo. So he's a professor in Unilag also, who also disregard the definition of who? Elmer Gigan. So that's why in economics we do regard every discipline as being what? As being an open-ended. Do you understand? Economics is subjected to what? Criticism. Anybody can criticize if you have your evidence of backing it up. So based on that, now let's go back to the definition of Lionel Robbins. Now, the definition of Lionel Robbins, like I said, we need to underline or pinpoint some things. The first thing is that science. The second thing is what? Ends. The third thing is what? Scarce means. And the fourth thing is what? Alternative uses. Now, another problem now showcase. The first problem is economics regarded as a science or a social science? That's another problem entirely. Is economics regarded as a science or what? Or a social science? Now, there are some scholars that supported economics being regarded as a science, and there are some scholars that supported economics being regarded as what? As a social science. I get what I'm saying. So one of the scholars that supported economics being regarded as science made his own emphasis. Do you understand? And why some scholars that regarded social science made their own emphasis. Now, let me now give you an instance now. Let me give you an instance. Now, like I said, there are some scholars that regarded economics being science. There are some scholars that regarded economics being what? Social science. Now, the reason why they regarded economics being a science is because of the fact that it is subjected to laws and theories. That's one of the reasons why they regard economics as a science. It has or possesses laws and theories. And if you look at it, it is true. Now, let me now give you an instance now. In theory of demand, or don't let me start from theory of demand. In theory of production or theories of production, we have a law there, known as what? Law of diminishing return. I get what I'm saying. If you don't want to call it law of diminishing returns, you will call it what? Law of variable proportion or law of no proportional returns. So apart from that, if you get to theory of utility, we have a law called law of diminishing marginal utility, or the Gosens first law. So apart from that, if we get to theory of demand, we have laws of what? Demand and supply. So you can see, before we can regard any discipline as a science, it must have what? Laws and theories. That's the first thing. Now, the second thing is that it must be what? It must be applicable. It must be what? Applicable. Or applicable. It's the same thing. Now, before a field, or we can regard any discipline as being science, it must be what? It must be applicable. For example, the law of demand and supply that I mentioned, one of the laws of demand and supply. Now, they said the higher the price of a commodity, the lower the quantity that what? Demanded, and vice versa. Is it not like that? That's it. So, based on that, it is applicable in the society. Are you getting that now? We also have a law under demand that says the higher the price of a commodity, the higher the quantity that will be what? That will be demanded. Although those things or those laws are applicable in a diversified way. Now, that's not about that. It must be what? It must be applicable. Now, in order to save time, let's just move to the second aspect. Now, the people that regarded economics as a social science, am I communicating? We have the likes of Alfred Marshall as well. The likes of who? Alfred Marshall. Now, they regarded economics as a science just because of the fact that it emphasized and study human behavior. And study what? Human behavior. I get what I'm saying now. Now, before we can regard any field as being social science as well, it must what? It must be studying the human behavior. I get what I'm saying. And how they acquire the necessities of life. Like what? Like food, clothing, and what? And shelter. So those are the things it must be what? Emphasizing on. So nowadays, as an economics student, we do regard economics as being what? As being social science. That's why if you get to higher institution, it is under the faculty of what? Social science. Do you understand now? So that's the reason why it is what? It is regarded as that. Now let's move to another branches. Actually, economics has two broad divisions. The first division that we have is microeconomics Microeconomics. And the second division we have is what? Macroeconomics. So the first division is microeconomics and the second division is what? Macroeconomics. Now, before we understand this part, now one of the things or one of the ways of understanding any concept in economics is by tracing it to its origin. Am I communicating? Now, the word micro, I get it as now, was developed from a Greek word known as what? Micro. Known as what? Micro. And if you look at the prefix of this micro, it means small. It means what? Small. Now, microeconomics only deals with things that are what? That are small in number or things that are within our society. So if you combine the two terms together, it means the study of what? The study of firms, government, and household. I get what I'm saying. That's economics of what? Of small aspects. Now, if I come to macro now, the word macro was also developed from a Greek word known as what? Macro, which means large. I get what I'm saying now. So this kind of word, this kind of division, or this is a type of what? This is a type of economics in which study the what? The old part of economics, or the larger part of economics. That's what? That's macro. From the word macro, if you look at the dictionary word, it also means something as what? At large. So we can also call it economics of aggregate economy. Economics of what? Aggregate economy. So which studies the society at what? At large. Why the micro studies the society in small parts. So those are the what? Those are the division of economics. Now, apart from that, going back to the definition of Alfred Marshall, like I said, we have science and scarce means and alternative what? Alternative uses. Now, let's bring out what I mean by ends. The second one, scarce means, and the third one, alternative what? Alternative uses. Now, these ends, in other terms, can be regarded as want. This scarce means can also be regarded as what? As scarcity, while alternative use can also be regarded as what? Opportunity cost. Am I communicating? Ends means what? Want. Scarce means what? Scarcity. Why alternative uses means what? Opportunity cost. Do you understand now? So those are the things we need to understand so that we can understand the full aspect of what? Economics at large. Now, what is want, what is scarce means, and what is alternative uses? So those are the things we need to pinpoint now. So let me start from scarce means. A lot of people in the society normally disregard or does not understand the full concept of scarce means or scarcity. Now, when I say something is scarcity, it's not that there are no commodity in the market. I get what I'm saying. But there is what? Shortage in supply. There is what? Shortage in what? In supply. So those are the things that happen in the what? In the market. If there is shortage of something in supply, that means we are going to experience what? Scarcity. I get what I'm saying now. So scarcity, if I want to define it in simple terms, it simply means when limited resources are used in satisfying unlimited want. Do you understand? When limited resources are used in satisfying unlimited want, that means we experience what I mean by what? Scarcity. And note, whenever there is scarcity, there will be what? Inflation. There will be what? Inflation. I get to that now. There will be what? Inflation. And what is inflation? Inflation means the general increase in price of commodity. I guess what I'm saying. The general what? Increase in price of commodity. That is when the price of commodity increase as a result of what? As a result of one or two factors. That's the reason why we call it inflation. So whenever we experience scarcity, we do experience also inflation. Because if there is shortage in supply, price of commodity will be increased. Do you understand? Price of commodity will be what? Will be increased. That was the reason why there was a man known as Philip in under inflation. That was why he pinpointed something that there is no way, no how that we are going to combine two things together. Do you understand now? There is no way, no how we are going to combine the two things together, but that's not where we are going. Now, let's move to another one, which is what? Want. I get what I'm saying now. Which is what? Want. Now, I will relate want to what I mean by effective demand. I get what I'm saying now. Now, under effective demand, it simply means the willingness and ability to purchase a commodity. I get what I'm saying? Backed up by the ability to pay. Now, if we are willing to purchase a commodity without the ability to pay for that commodity, it's simply regarded as what? Want. I get what I'm saying? You are willing to buy the commodity, but it is not backed up by the what? Ability to pay. You can regard it as what? As want. Am I communicating? You can regard it as what? As want. So that's it about that. So under want do happen in every criteria. Now, the third one now is what? Alternative what? Use or uses. So we do regard it as what? Opportunity cost. Opportunity what? Opportunity cost. Another name for opportunity cost is also called what? Alternative forgone. Alternative what? Forgone. When you forgo one thing for another what? For another commodity. When you forgo one thing for another what? Another commodity can be regarded as what? Alternative forgone. Let me give us an instance. Now, what I've explained is want, scarcity, opportunity cost. Opportunity cost, which I also said it can be regarded as what? Alternative forgone. Now, I need to add something to the list, which is what? Which is scale of preference. Scale of what? Preference. And also, I need to add something to it, which is what? Choice. So these are the things that we do. We call it basic concept of what? Of economics. Want, scarcity, opportunity cost, scale of preference, and what? Choice. Now, let me explain the scale of preference. Now, if I say something is scale of preference, yes, all these are under microeconomics. Yeah. Now, if I say something is called scale of preference, it means when things are arranged in order of what? Relative importance. In order of what? Relative importance, or in order of priority. Do you understand? Their level of, in accordance with their level of importance. Do you understand? So let me give us an instance, or let me give us an example, a great example of what I'm saying. Let me write it here. Now, looking at the table now, let's take, for instance, this is our price, or this is our commodity. And these are what? Our price. Are you getting what I'm saying now? Let's not take, for instance, we have Mr. A. Let's take this one as an instance that this is Mr. A scale of preference. Am I communicating? Who has 400 naira. Do you understand? And Mr. A is a student. I get what I'm saying. He's a student. Now, as a student, there are things that will come up to your mind before you can purchase anything. As a student, one of the things you need to engage yourself in when you are preparing a scale of preference as a student is that, okay, as a result of the fact that I'm a student, I will have to buy my what? The first thing I will have to buy first is what? Is uniform. I get what I'm saying. Uniform can be 200 naira, for instance. Now, the second thing I will need to buy is my bag. Maybe my bag is what? 100 naira. The third thing I will need to buy is my what? Is my book. Maybe it's another what? 100 naira. Do you understand? So all things being equal are what? Are not necessary. So far you have all these things. So Mr. A will spend 400 naira on all these things just because of the fact that we call it or we arrange it in order of what? Priority. Now let me now give us another question now. Let's take for instance, we have pen of 50 naira. We have shoe 100 naira. We have socks 200 naira. Now let's not take for instance, Mr. A has 400 naira. Do you understand? Now the first thing he will buy based on his 400 naira will be uniform, bag, and what? Book. Do you understand? This will be the three things Mr. A will what? Will buy. Is it not like that? That's it. So apart from this, what will be the opportunity cost of Mr. A? That's another question, a WAEC question. What will be the what? Opportunity cost of Mr. A. So if Mr. A did not spend his money on 200, 100, and this, he will spend his money on what? Pen, shoe, and socks. So the opportunity cost, he will forego what? Uniform, bag, and books. For what? For pen, shoe, and what? And socks. Do you understand now? So that means that alternative foregone is also useful under what? Scale of preference. Do you understand now? So if let me say it again. If Mr. A did not what? Purchase uniform, bag, and book, he will purchase what? Pen, shoe, and what? And socks. So let me just round it off now. So let me just summarize all what I've said so far. So, like I said, from the outset, before when I started the introduction of economics, I said the first person that defined economics is regarded as Aristotle. Am I communicating? In which he coined economics from a Latin word, oikos and what? And nomos. And I said oikos means what? Household. Why nomos means what? Management. He even wrote a book. I get what I'm saying, in the 19th century. Do you understand now? So based on that, after Aristotle defined economics, we have the likes of what? Alfred Marshall. It was the one that changed the word from political economy to economic science. Because formerly, back then, they normally regard economics as what? As political economy. Do you understand now? So after such scenario, we now have the likes of Adam Smith, Alfred Marshall, JBC, H.V. Pot, and this man, and Lionel C. Robbins also. So these are the 5 people. We have more than 5 people. Actually, the people that define economics are up to 30. Are up to what? Are up to 30. So, and I said we have 2 schools of thought that define economics. The first school of thought is regarded as the wealth definition, while the what? Second school of thought is regarded as the what? The welfare school of what? Thought that define economics. These 2 schools of thought, their definition were not accepted just because of the fact that they were emphasizing on 2 different things. Do you understand? So after Lionel C. Robbins, although it was 80% of the scholars that accepted Lionel C. Robbins' definition, while Elmer Gigant disregarded the definition just because of the fact that it is subjected to criticism. Do you understand now? So after M.L. Jingan, someone also criticized M.L. Jingan, like a professor in Unilag. Like I said, Ademola Adebayo. Do you understand now? He also what? He also criticized M.L. Jingan's what? Definition. You can see it in his book, Simple Approach to Economics. So he also disregarded the what? The definition. I also said that economics has 2 major branches. We have microeconomics and macroeconomics. So micro is dealing with the small part of economics that is economics that deals with what? Fame, household, and government. While the macroeconomics is dealing with what? Aggregate economy, or something that we call whole economy or economics at large. Do you understand now? So I think with this, I will try to, I will call it a day. In the next class, we'll continue from where we stopped.